I'm planting emerald cedars today, and they are 6 feet tall. I usually plant them around 5 to 6 feet, and I purchased them yesterday. And really important, if you can't get them in the ground right away, make sure you water them the night before so that they're nice and moist, because they dry out really fast when they're in their pots. So step number 1 is prepping your soil to make sure it has lots of nutrients so your cedars grow. Let's take a look at my soil here. I'm just gonna grab a handful of it and give it a squeeze test. My soil is actually a little sandy, so I need to make sure that it has more organic matter. So hopefully where you are, you have really good soil. In my case, it's a little bit sandy, so I'm actually gonna dig some holes here for my cedars. Now, generally, your cedars need a hole that's double the width of them. You don't have to go too deep at all. And I'm digging a trench because I want them close together. That's also key. Do you want a hedge or do you want trees in a line? The planting and spacing will be different depending on what you want. I want a hedge. What I like to do after you've dug your hole twice the width of your cedar is actually give it a test drive. We're gonna test this out to see if we have dug down enough. I'm gonna pop it in the hole and then give it a shovel test. Grab your shovel, and we're looking for the tree to sit above. We don't want it too low, you want it above or just at the height of the rest of your topsoil or your garden. Okay, I like how that looks. Now we can amend the soil. So to amend the soil, I'm using black earth. Just give it a good stab, take out your frustrations. I don't have frustrations. All right, and then you wanna I'm gonna put a little bit at the bottom of our hole here. And this is just because I want these to grow super fast, and I found if you have a little bit of black earth in there, you're gonna get these trees to grow faster. No fuss, no muss. Get in there with your hands. This is earth, this feels good. So why I'm doing this is nutrient-rich soil. So in between waterings, it's gonna retain the moisture with the cedar hedge. So that is why I'm doing this right now. It really is to retain the moisture, because this soil that's native is just not gonna cut it. So let's take a look at this root ball here to see what we're working with. So I'm just gonna remove the pot from my cedar. And you can see that the roots are looking good. Now, you don't want to disturb the roots. I've seen some videos where people are tearing this to shreds. Don't do that, because roots of trees are actually sensitive and delicate. So we're just gonna leave that as is. Stand the tree upright. And then we're gonna drop it into the hole, because roots are nicely exposed, so that's good. And so I'm gonna choose the prettiest side of the tree to face out, because we want everything to look nice. And set it in our trench like that. That looks good. Second one, here we go. Now, spacing is key if you want a hedge. It depends how fast you want your hedge also. I want mine pretty fast. Get the tops lined up there, get it looking good where we want it. In line. This one's gonna need a little TLC. That's actually a really bare root ball. I like to see more soil on that. Okay, we found the runt of the litter. As you can see, that's way too short for a hedge. I'm gonna put that on the end so it's less noticeable. Let's swap this out for something tall. This one looks good looking. Okay, come here. Give it a hug. There you go. I had to lug all of these into the backyard, and if you are transporting these into your backyard, a dolly is the way to go. It's so much easier. So as you are planting each tree, it is a good idea to fertilize each one as you go. And to do that, you want to make sure that your soil is moist, very important. And I've got some fertilizer here. Just gonna grab that with a gloved hand always, sprinkle it, mix it up, that's good. Now your soil has to be moist, because if you don't have water in there and you put the cedar, it can actually burn the roots because they're very sensitive. Now we're gonna put our cedar in, and then we know that the bottom of the root will be nicely fertilized, and the water will prevent burning of your roots. Choose the nice side. So this is a trick I learned from our local cedar farmers. it's what's inside the bag. This is actually manure. This is gonna help our cedars to grow a little bit better and to provide some nutrients. So what I'm gonna do is just top dress this. I'm just gonna top dress this with a little bit of manure. And you don't need too much. Now I've planted cedars that have grown up to 12 feet and 8 feet 10 years ago. I have a link to the video in the description for you, and this is actually how I planted them. I planted them with a little bit of sheep manure. I'm just gonna broadcast a little bit of this. And I actually do this every spring, just a little bit, just to provide a little bit of nourishment, and I do this on my entire garden. And I'm just mixing this in lightly with our soil, pushing it in behind, and I'm just using a bag here. And no, it doesn't smell bad, in case you're wondering. After fertilizing, I'm gonna give these a nice drink of water just from the garden hose here because I want to apply fertilizer. And again, I have to make sure that the soil is moist before I do that. You see all this wasted water? This is what we want to avoid. When I do a cedar hedge, I actually don't like to use a garden hose because this is entirely a waste of water and it's not actually doing the cedars much good if the water is going downhill. There's something better that you can do when watering your cedars. I'll show you what that is. Here is a seeper hose or soaker hose, and it is key to get your cedars on a watering program, and this for me is the best way to do it. Start at the top. And what you're trying to do is just go in between each cedar with your soaker hose. And I'm gonna wrap it around the end one in a little loop, little donut, and weave it around. I'm just gonna tuck it in behind. And you can just weave this as you go as well if you want. Soaker hose. Gonna attach this. This is actually gonna save you a lot of money on your water bill. This is huge. We're gonna reduce the evaporation and the runoff and set it on a timer. You set it and forget it. Okay, let's turn that on and see how it is. Now an all-important step is your fertilizer. Now that we have the soil that is nice and wet, I can broadcast some slow release fertilizer. And I like to do this in the spring, and you don't want to fertilize near the end of your summer season either because you want your cedars to go into fall without the fertilizer. That's really important for the roots and the development because you want the energy of your cedars to go to the roots for the fall and winter. Because we live in an area of high heat and humidity, we want to keep that water in the soil. So how do we do that? Right over here. Take a look at what I have in this bag. We have mulch, and I'm just going to put that actually over the soaker hose. Gonna hide that really nicely. And what this does is when you water your hedge, it's gonna keep the moisture in the soil and keep it moist in between waterings. And you don't want too much. I'm just gonna top dress that about 2 inches or so. It's just gonna keep the water in the soil and again, help with that evaporation. Now, if you like the look of a really dense hedge where it's all tight and forms a solid green line, I like this spacing for myself. I find it works really well with emerald cedars. And what is that? Well, from trunk to trunk, the measurement that I am looking for, from the start of my tape to the center of the trunk to trunk, I'm looking for 16 inches. And that is what I do for spacing for emerald cedars. And that's because I want a hedge quickly. If you have a larger gap in between trees, all that means is you're gonna have to wait longer to actually have a hedge and privacy. Patience will pay off though. Now, the #1 cause of cedar failure is browning, and the reason is because a lot of people do not water these enough. If you use a soaker hose, that's gonna help you out tremendously. Another trick that I use is actually when you plant your cedar and it's well watered, give it a feel. It should feel nice and moist. This is gonna sound a little funny, but when your cedar starts to lose water, it's going to lose water and moisture in its extremities here, and it's going to start to get crispy or crunchy, and you're going to feel that in the foliage right here. So if you feel that and it starts to get a little dry, that is an early indication that you may want to increase your watering. A lot of times too with browning, you're going to see your emerald cedar should be vibrant. If you start to see that change color and go a little bit yellow or a lighter green, it's a good indication you might want to increase your watering and check your soil as well. If you'd like to know what these trees will look like in a few years from now, I planted cedars 10 years ago, 2 different varieties. I have a video right here. I break down all my best tips and tricks for caring for your cedars. Be sure to check it out. Thanks so much, everybody.